Greetings and good day to you. This little conversation is for a very specific person. This is for the person who has been referred to homeopathy, but you have no clue what it is. You have never even heard about it before, much less pronounced the name. And yet at the same time, you have a deeply held biblical worldview, and you are actually trying to live your life with that biblical viewpoint in mind. So let's just start where we always start, is when we're sick. There is various degrees of fear and worry, isn't there? And it's a time when we want assurance, we want the familiar, we want the sure bet, we want the guarantees. And it's really hard to, if something is unfamiliar, it's really hard to trust that. It's impossible to trust that. And in the United States, unfortunately, homeopathy is very unknown. Whereas in India, you're taking remedies from before you're born to on your deathbed. It's very helpful even in that time. Well, would you be surprised to know that I had to sort through this. I had to wrestle with this concern 25 years ago. So why don't you walk with me as I take a stroll down memory lane as how when I had to wrestle with this too. It was the night before our first day of school, and I was vibrating with excitement. I just could not wait. And yet, this issue kind of held out in the back here of my brain. And, I blurted out to Tom, I said, oh, what if I get there tomorrow and there's just a whole lot of woo-woo-y stuff? I mean, natural medicine has got so much woo-woo-y stuff in it. And, of course, he launched into his male brain and he came up with the solution. He said, well, just go the weekend, and if there's too much of that, just don't go back. To wherein I launched into my female brain and I said, ooh, Captain Obvious, yeah, well, but what do I do with my disappointment? What do I do with my frustration that here I thought I had this calling since I was 4 years old, and I just put it in a cardboard box, and throw it down in the basement next to the weed killer, and then it's all over. That's it. It's all done forever, right? Well, I did not say that. Fortunately, I held my tongue. It was only a thought. But in the end, because I knew that really was my only option. So the next day finally came. And the first day was listening to everybody's journey as how they started, like I did, started with Western medicine, and how did we end up here in this strange occupation called homeopathy? What happened? And it was amazing. Everybody's story was so unique, was so individual. But I'll tell you what, I heard the same things over and over with the words frustrated, scared, didn't know what else to do, I'll try anything, there's got to be something, desperate. I heard those words over and over. Well, we talked about a lot of things that first weekend. And on Sunday, the final conversation at 3 o'clock was our core theory, our understanding of what has happened to humanity and why we are in such a pickle down here. So, and by this time, I had come to the realization that even though I'd been in natural medicine as a consumer and I was a colon therapist, so I was a practitioner of sorts, it became clear to me that everything I thought I knew didn't apply. Nothing translated. I was in a whole new world. Well, it was time for the discussion to start, and so our teacher started, and he said, okay, this core theory of ours, well, it all started in this garden. And there was one man who was assigned to take care of this garden, and his only other job was to name the animals. Well, he had great food, organic food, really great weather. But one day, this apple thing happened. And the fallout from that apple thing was terrible. It was just awful. And even the next generation couldn't write it because the next generation had brother killing brother. Well, the fallout on that tragic day was absolute devastation, and it was permanent, and as it is to this day. So even though he went on to say, even though we understand the spiritual aspect of that was just as devastating as the physical aspect, physical, mental, emotional aspect of that, it was huge. And even though we understand all of it as part of the problem, when you have that spiritual aspect along with the physical, mental, emotional fallout, all of a sudden it becomes so big you can't handle it all. And then what happens is it kind of degrades down into a theological debate, and then people are left with their sickness and their illness and their suffering, which is intolerable. That is not possible. We cannot let that happen. So what we have to do is we have to cut, even though we understand the importance, that has to be cut off and sent to a different profession, a different professional. And as the years rolled on, I did discover there was a couple other gals that had the same biblical worldview that I did. And it was a relief to know that there was someone else. There aren't very many of us out there, though. But, and another thing that I noticed was every year this kind of came up. The question would come up, what about that Garden of Eden thing? Was that real? Was that true? Or was it an urban legend? And our teacher would always say the same thing. He'd say, well, I had a PhD, I was doing cancer research, and, I left that behind, and now I was doing this work here. And now that I've been doing this, I think it was true. I don't see any other way of explaining what has happened. I don't see any other thing that makes any sense. This is the only thing that makes sense. So, yes, folks, that means that the biblical understanding of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is our core theory. It is our North Star. It is how we understand the quandary that we find ourselves in even today. I hope they still teach it that way. Politically, things are a lot different, but I hope it's still taught that way in schools all over the world, because Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, he read his Bible every single day. It was a part of his normal life. It was a part of his thinking, and it took him 12 long years to put all these pieces together to formulate homeopathy, which he eventually did. So it would be a real tragedy if they don't continue to teach that understanding. So let's bring it home to you for your life right now. How do I take this home? So if your homeopath is keeping the main thing, they're watching their P's and their Q's, it is not necessary that you have a religious match with them. It's like any other profession. It's like other clinics, other teachers, shopping, your employer. I mean, there's all sorts of different religions out there. You go with the practitioner who you feel either has your expertise that you want or where you feel the most comfortable, that type of thing. That's who you go with. As long as they're minding their P's and Q's, as long as they're classically trained. If I do have to say, though, if there is a match, that is kind of nice. It is kind of nice if you're on the same page. But remember what you're looking for. You're looking for someone for your struggles in the here and now. You've got your future all set up. That is signed, sealed, delivered, as the old song goes. The conversation you're going to have with this practitioner is about your struggles in the here and the now. So I think that covers everything. Oh, other than one thing. Kudos to you for having this struggle, for trying to think this through. Um, you know, surprising things happen when you wrestle with this. Have you noticed that? I sure have. So, anyway, that's all I had. And as always, my best to you as you continue your healing journey.